I have exciting news to share with everyone today. So, today, an exciting piece of history for women's health and hormone therapy for women happened, and the FDA has now removed the black box warning for hormone therapies for women. And so that is what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm excited to have this discussion. Welcome back to the channel. It's Dr. Debra Durst, and I specialize in hormone replacement therapy and sexual medicine for women. So let's get into it. So there was a black box warning placed in the early 2000s for hormone therapy for women. And I think most women that have any symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are probably aware of some kind of warning and scare and fear that we've had since the early 2000s. But today I want to talk about what is a black box warning, why is it now changing for hormone therapies for women, and what does that mean for us? And what are some pieces that still need to be addressed and progress in this area? Well, first off, I'll just say it's exciting. Like, we're progressing in women's health, and it is so exciting to see that happen. I have been doing women's health and hormones since 2017, and I've been educating on it since 2011. So basically, you have to branch out of traditional medicine to learn anything about hormones and in the treatment of men or women because it's not taught to us in medical school. And so I did that in 2011 at my first anti-aging conference, which was eye-opening for me that there were actually solutions that you could offer patients that weren't being offered in traditional medicine. And I knew nothing of it. I was traditionally trained and learned nothing of that when I was in my residency program or in med school. So when I first learned that was an option that could be offered to patients, then I was super excited to jump into that field of medicine. But it still took me 6 or 7 years to put it into practice. And even since then, it's been customizing it and, feedback between patients and us as we're managing hormones that you learn a lot along the way. But basically, it's still exciting. And the FDA black box, what does that mean? So the FDA will put a black box on something. So just so you know, something can get FDA approval, make it to market, and either have a black box on it or way after the use of that product that there's a black box placed on it for some reason. But they do that because they have found some risk associated with it. It could be a serious risk or it could be a life-threatening one, and then they put a black box label on that. And so again, I think that there's still some study support of whatever that black box label is. I have used an anti-nausea medicine for years, very safely in practice, but then a new nausea medicine came out and there was a black box warning placed on the older one that we were using. And so I had known in practice, I'd never ran into issues with that original and older medication. So sometimes they'll come out with a risk, but in practice, and if you look at the studies, maybe that is something that providers strictly follow and sometimes not, just so you know. Again, physicians can make independent decisions about whether to use something off-label and to also use it in the context of a black box warning. But that's what it is. They put it on there saying they found something, just so all providers or prescribers of that medication are aware that there's something that they picked up on as being unsafe. And so for hormone therapies such as synthetic estrogens, and again, it really was synthetic estrogens, Premarin, they're all synthetic, they're all made in the lab, but some of them are bioidentical, identical to what's used in the body, so identical to what we make and our normal production. But basically, if there is any kind of hormone therapy for women, so estradiol, which is bioidentical, or an estrogen synthetic, or a progestin, pretty much is the one in progesterone, those had black box warnings because they were hormone therapies. And so any of those had black box warnings since the early 2000s because the WHI Health Initiative study was initiated in the late 1990s, and then it was stopped early in 2002 because of an increased risk of breast cancer. stroke, thromboembolic disorder or clots, heart disease. And so because they had an increased risk with this study, or it was reported to be, they put a black box label on all hormone therapies within the next year. But the problem is a lot of that data was inaccurately reported, and it's known to be so for greater than 20 years. And so it's exciting news that finally in 2025, in November 10th to be exact, we have taken that black box warning off. So why did we take it off now? Why has that been a change? And it's because they had a meeting of experts, the FDA did. And so basically their panel convened in July of this year, 2025, and they had decided that there was new research, or the new evidence, the updated evidence doesn't support the risk that was once reported that initiated that black box warning. So basically there's newer research, and for that reason they decided to remove it. They met in July, talked about it, and then that was moved to today. And so now they will recommend to the pharmaceutical companies to remove all the black box warnings on hormone therapies in women, which is exciting. And it also will come down to the risky times that they're talking about. So if you've went for greater than 10 years after you've transitioned into menopause, or if you're greater than 63 years old, maybe it's even 60, I think it's greater than 60, definitely greater than 10 years out, or a high risk of cardiovascular disease, those might be increased risk and contraindications for hormone therapy. So they still will have, and they still do carry a risk and have to be individualized for patients based on their medical history. And so again, you still need somebody that specializes in hormones that can know how to individually dose it per woman, because every woman's different and the risk for every woman is also different. But what does this mean for us? Well, it means that now we can have more open conversations, because a lot of our patients come in very fearful. And actually, it opens conversations with the medical community as well, because a lot of the physicians are also afraid because of that 2002 black box warning. And so we had 1 in 5 women on hormones when that study came out, and essentially went down to less than 5%. But just know the breast cancer risk alone has not decreased. And over that period of time, since 2002 to 2025, the incidence of breast cancer has still continued to rise, which just tells you that there's lots of external factors, not just hormones, causing that. But it does allow us now to open those conversations with medical providers, because a lot of our patients come in because they know it's not being done right, and their questions that they have for their primary providers or the gynecologists aren't getting answered, and they are automatically almost scared against hormones. Or our patients go to their primary doctor or their gynecologist and they're like, oh, you're on that, you need to come off. So at least now this will force the medical community to start looking at that data. And it's just the fact that we reported it erroneously in 2002, and it scared everyone, the medical community and patients. So now this allows us to reverse that. And the hormone specialists can help those primary care providers and gynecologists become more educated in the realm of hormone replacement therapy for women. So that's super exciting. And more women will just feel like they have the freedom and confidence to make a choice for hormone replacement therapy, because a lot of women place a lot of weight on any FDA approval or not approval. And so now the fact that they're just giving the green light will help those women potentially not have the stigma surrounding hormone replacement therapy. And there has been a big stigma, and that allows us to help and start progressing that movement from having a stigma related to menopause and perimenopause and any hormone replacement therapy related to treating their symptoms. And there's been a lot of progress on social media and education related to perimenopause and menopause, but it also plays into the fact that there's lots of sexual changes that we'll experience as we hit perimenopause and menopause that we want to also improve, and hormones is just one piece of that. So this allows us to start progressing those conversations as well. And so it's a big opportunity for women right now. This is an exciting time that we're finally talking more about perimenopause and menopause, and we can talk about the estrogen, the progesterone. We're going to do many more podcasts just talking about the differences between the things that are unaddressed so far, the differences between synthetic and bioidentical, the differences between compounded preparations and conventional. What about progesterone? We're talking about progestins with this, but what about progesterone? What about the balance between the different hormones? And what about testosterone? Because there are no testosterone approved products in the US for women. So that's a big missing piece yet. And yet there's lots of compounded ways to do that. But these experts and consensus panels aren't yet up to speed on, promoting the safety of those alternatives for women as well. So lots of podcasts to have on this, but I want to hear what you're thinking about this exciting time in medicine. So let me know your comments, let me know your thoughts, and how does this day in history speak to you? I want to hear all about it. So listen, and if there's anything else you want to talk about, just let us know, because I am always willing to deep dive into anything wellness or sexual wellness. Thank you.